All right, Senator Hester, 885 Development Income Tax Credit for Catalytic Revitalization Projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, esteemed members of the committee. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up? Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to present Senate Bill 885. For the record, Senator Katie Fry Hester. I don't know if you guys do slides or not in BNT. I had submitted slides. You could always pull them up on your laptop. They should be on the floor system. But I've got some great pictures of old buildings I wanted to show y'all.
Is that teed up, Kim, or not?
No, Senator.
Okay.
We didn't.
Just have to look at them at our leisure.
Okay. I'll just walk you through through what's there. So you should have received a copy of the study that we recently did, along with an economic analysis report by the Able Foundation. And I was here last year talking about our existing Maryland historic tax credit. And this year I'm here with a more specific ask. SB0885 is aimed specifically at catalytic revitalization projects. And this is particularly important to projects that are large, formerly owned state or federal projects. These projects are spread across the state. In the presentation, you'll see that we have projects in every single county across the state, from Footer Dye Works in Cumberland and Phillips Packing Center in Cambridge to the National Park Seminary in Silver Spring and Fort Ritchie in Washington County. So this really could be used by many different types of large projects across the state. The thing is that we have a large inventory of these vacant buildings, and many of them are currently sitting empty. Take, for example, the Crownsville Hospital, which is no longer being used, but it costs the state nearly $2 million annually to keep it mothballed, secured in the grounds mode. That's $2 million of taxpayer money. On the other hand, what you'll hear shortly is that when these complexes are revitalized, such as the Springfield Hospital, which is now Warfield and Sykesville in my district, they could be generating substantial income for the town, the county, and the state, somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000 per square foot once revitalized. What was I going to say? In addition, there's a number of other economic benefits that were pointed out in the Able report. For example, just lost my slide. Love technology. And the Able report says that for every $1 worth of tax credits issued, it generates $8 of economic activity. And for every $15 million of tax credits, it creates nearly 800 jobs. So investing in revitalization at this point in time is a great way to stimulate our economy and a great way to put people back to work. So what exactly does SB 885 do? I'm still struggling with my computer. Hold on just a second. It creates an initial tax credit certificate equal to 20% of the rehabilitation expenses. And this tax credit can be taken over 5 years, up to $3 million per project per year. And the way we've structured this, I'm not sure it's exactly accurate in the fiscal note, but it's not intended to impact the budget for several years. For example, if a project were to get the tax credit the first year the bill was enacted, they would have several years to become shovel ready and actually complete the project and get the tax credit in year 4 or 5. So it's a way to jumpstart the economy without costing a lot this year. This legislation was one of the key recommendations of the report that I mentioned earlier that we did with the Department of Planning and over 25 different stakeholders. And it's specifically modeled on a tax credit from Ohio. Their tax credit is a $25 million tax credit that is awarded to projects every 2 years. It's been used to redevelop the Goodyear headquarters in Akron and the May department store in Cleveland. And so they've had really, really great success with this. So with that kind of broad overview, I'd like to turn it over to my expert panel. that includes the wonderful mayor from the coolest town in Maryland, Sykesville, Mayor Ian Shaw. It also includes Sherilyn Weidel, an expert historian, historic redevelopment consultant who worked on the study with us 2 years ago, and Steve McLeaf of Warfield Development in Sykesville, who is doing his best to bring the old Springfield Hospital back to life as an economic engine for Sykesville. So with that, I will either answer questions or turn it over to the next person on my list.
Thank you, Senator. Mayor Shaw.
Okay, well, thank you, Chairman and distinguished members. We really appreciate you taking a look at this bill. Obviously, and I've sent written testimony for you to review. It's a little more comprehensive. One of the things that Senator Hester had mentioned is the cost of simply just mothballing these buildings. So the town, these were transferred to the town, yeah, and we did our best to keep it up, but it's been challenging to maintain these buildings, the historic structures over the years. So with the Warfield Development Group that is now the owner of the property, they have a planned employment center. We have an approved concept there, which is mixed use with housing, commercial, retail, and that kind of stuff, which we think can be still fantastic. However, the gulf is wide, as you can imagine, for remediation on a lot of these buildings, getting some of the things out that the state kind of left there. I mean, now we kind of in hindsight see why they were excited to transfer this property, because it got a lot of the remediation cost off the books for the state. So this is an effort really to maybe pick back up on that a little bit and sort of, without direct funds out of pocket, obviously, so we can get something that is built there. And as Senator Hester said, brings back economic development on a mixed use project. So I know you guys got a full schedule. So to the extent that the funds for this program would help the developer offset the cost of the historic restoration at this site, which is big. As you can imagine, these are big buildings. They've got a lot of issues: lead paint, asbestos, a lot of remediation costs. So to the extent that they can help facilitate that and make the current plan that we have approved, which is mixed use, which the town's really excited about getting done there, we're in full support of this. So we would ask you for your support. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve McLeaf.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen McLeaf with the Warfield Companies, as Katie mentioned, and we're the owner and developer of Warfield at Historic Sykesville. I want to emphasize first that this is not a bill about one project. As you'll hear from Ms. Waddell, that Warfield is one of many larger properties, either currently or formerly owned by the state of Maryland, that are not economically viable for rehabilitation without significant public-private collaboration. Our cost gap, our difference between cost and finished value is somewhere around $30 million plus at Warfield. And a lot of it, as the mayor mentioned, relates to remediation costs and higher costs associated with historic preservation. The state tax credit, the existing state historic tax credit, while wonderful, is inadequate to take on large projects like this, with an annual cap, program cap of $9 million and a $3 million per project cap. We have a budget of over $65 million on this project, just the rehab portion of it. So the project, the program, the existing program simply doesn't work for larger scale projects, and the catalytic tax credit is a remedy to that problem. I also want to say that this bill is as much about economic development as it is about historic preservation. Senator Hester referenced the ABLE report. I just want to highlight a few other things from the ABLE report, which was completed in 2019. Over the 11-year period between 2009 and 2019, there were 136 commercial projects that utilized $97 million in tax credit investment in Maryland. These projects generated a total economic impact in the Maryland economy of more than $790 million and 5,000 jobs, earning $303 million. Only 25% of this was construction related. These same 136 projects generated over 33 million in incremental state and local taxes. 19 million of that was to the state and 14 million to local jurisdictions, which obviously these tax increases provide increased these incremental taxes provide increased funding for important public services and public projects, not just at the state level, but at the local level. And then the last thing I would emphasize from a study by the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis in 2017, this study found that rehabilitation projects paid back a state's initial tax credit investment within 5 years through the generation of new taxes. So I'd argue that the historic preservation and economic development are not mutually exclusive. They can actually be quite compatible. And the proposed catalytic tax credit bill is a much needed vehicle to encourage both in connection with these large historic complexes across the state. I thank you for your time and ask for a favorable report on the bill.
Thank you very much. Sherilyn Weidel.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Sherilyn Weidel. I'm the principal of Weidel Preservation Services in Chestertown, Maryland. I'm here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 885, which will provide a catalytic historic tax credit to developers reusing large historic complexes formerly owned by the state or federal government. Things like VA hospitals, mental health hospitals, military installations. With David Shiver, economist, and Pat Sparks, a structural engineer, we were the author of the report just mentioned by Senator Hester entitled Advancing the Preservation and Reuse of Maryland's Historic Complexes, which was submitted as part of my testimony. I am an expert on the redevelopment of historic complexes. I've helped to turn around places like the Presidio of San Francisco, a closed army post turned into a national park, but a different kind of national park where people are living and businesses are functioning. And it is earning $80 million a year in revenue. Or Fort Monroe in Hampton Roads, Virginia, where the former Army post has at least 100 historic buildings that are being used for business and residential use. A good place to live, work, and play. The reuse of Lorton Prison outside of Washington, D.C., and others. Successful reuse of such large historic complexes found throughout the nation are bringing investments in revitalization to both large and small communities. But you won't find many places like these examples in Maryland. The state is filled with historic complexes, which have been standing empty, often for decades, while the state pays millions to keep one or two guards watching them decline. These are places like Glendale in Prince George's County, the Tome School in Cecil County, all of which we studied. Even the office building of the Department of Housing and Community Development is surrounded by Crownsville, a former mental health hospital with empty buildings. Why has Maryland, which excels in so many good government programs, failed to attract the private capital to reuse these places? Maryland's historic tax credit program is not adequate to attract developers. The study that I did identified the structure of the existing state historic tax credit as a key barrier. Senate Bill 885 will begin to change this problem in Maryland. Senate Bill 885 will provide a catalytic tax credit. It's a proven solution, as you heard, having been used in Ohio for very large projects successfully, and is a great first step to turn this situation around in Maryland. Tax incentives are important because they help fill the financial gap, provide equity to the owner, and incentivize and
Please wrap up.
Historic preservation. So do not delay. Senate Bill 885 will help Maryland entice developers into the state to redevelop these large historic complexes formerly owned by Maryland or the federal government. I strongly encourage a favorable report of Senate Bill 885 and truly thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ellie Cohen.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Ellie Cowan. I am the Director of Advocacy at Preservation Maryland, and I'm here to support Senate Bill 885. Preservation Maryland is the, we worked with Sherilyn and we've worked with Senator Hester and Mr. McLeaf over the years to strengthen our state's historic tax credit, which is currently at starvation level funding at the $9 million, although it is, there is the opportunity to add more funding to this. But what Senate Bill 885 does is it creates a separate tax credit within the Department of Housing and Community Development to really focus on these large scale catalytic projects that have the ability to really jumpstart investment and economic revitalization in the communities in which they are. And as has been mentioned before, you know, this is all over the state. Maryland is blessed with a number of federal complexes as well as the formerly state-owned ones. And so we know that providing these types of incentives like a catalytic tax project really do encourage the private investment to leverage private dollars to rehabilitate not only historic complexes, but other large scale government complexes. So, you know, historic has a very specific meaning. And so we've worked with the senator's office to ensure that if in the process of divesting these complexes, they lose their technical historic designation, they would not be precluded from utilizing this catalytic tax credit because we really believe in the power it has to help drive investment to disinvested areas, to disinvested projects. Really, this can be one of the manners in which we can get projects like this, like Warfields, like Fort Ritchie, moving forward. And so, you know, we are happy to offer our support and encourage a favorable report of Senate Bill 885. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any questions for the senator or this panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, committee, Mr. Chairman.